Hi there, this is Sophie B. Hawkins, and you are listening to Icon Fetch.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
Welcome to Icon Fetch. I am Tony Peters. Now, Georgia native Jennifer Paige scored one massive hit in 1998 with the seductive pop of Crush. The single went number 3 in the United States and topped the charts in 6 different countries. Now, despite recording a strong debut album, she had no further hits. And her promising sophomore album, Positively Somewhere, had the misfortune of coming out the week after 9/11. Now, she returned with a third album, Best Kept Secret, in 2008, but lost both of her parents and was diagnosed with melanoma in the same year. Well, not surprisingly, she lost the desire for music for a while, but now she's returned with her fourth album, Starflower, funded by a successful Kickstarter program. And to talk about it, we welcome to the show Jennifer Paige. Jennifer, good to talk to you. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great.
Well, this has to be just a great, incredible feeling to finally be on the verge of, releasing this new album. You've kind of come full circle, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's just a totally different feeling than my previous releases because it's independent, and I made it really very simply in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, with a producer, wrote the songs, recorded the songs together, and put it out. And luckily, the response has been great so far. So I'm very hopeful for the future. Right, absolutely. Now, you mentioned being an independent artist, so it has to be kind of a change. You were signed to Hollywood Records, you had a German record contract, so you were on a big label, and now it's funny to see you listed in the list of independent artists, because you know what I mean? I'm sure. Right. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a total change. But, the music industry has changed so much since I started. I started back in 1998 when it really was all about major labels, and there was no such thing as digital services like there are now. And so it really is just such a different game because people find their music in so many different ways that I just found that you mentioned, kind of the things that had happened and, with my releases and things. And at a certain point you say hey, I really remember that I was doing music for music's sake. I'm going to go do that. And then, see what happens after. Instead of, it kind of got flip-flopped there for a while, where it's it became the business first and then the music. And I'd gotten so far away from my original passion for music that I just said, hey, oh, right, I love music, and this is what this is about. And so I feel like I've kind of come back to myself in a way. We do our best to get by. Ooh, it's a messy life, beating up on the inside. We try. And, what's great about it, you talk about, you had the backing of a major label, but this time, and you said, times have changed since 1998. Here, you actually reach out. You have a successful Kickstarter program of people, you have a community of fans that believe in what you're doing, and they help fund your project. I mean, how cool is that? It's crazy, and it's so not like me to reach out to people for help. That's just not my MO, typically. So that alone was just such a departure from how I've typically done things. But I really had to change the perspective in my mind of help me make this record to hey, people are pre-ordering this album that I'm making and they're excited about it. They're going to get things that they can't get elsewhere, that I don't sell elsewhere. So I had to really accept that and be good with that. And as the process, when I pressed submit on the Kickstarter button, I was what's going to happen here? Right. This is so scary. But, as the process went along, it was a really good process for me to see that, one, people care enough to get involved, and two, I do have a community of people there. And, I've really leaned on them throughout the years when, I was more quiet about what was going on. I never really said, because I never wanted people to feel badly for me. I'd never, people go through hard times all the time. And so I was no different in that. And I didn't want my music career to come about that. So I kind of kept quiet about it. But really, it is part of my story. And so I'm finally kind of sharing that. And I think it feels kind of good just to be honest about things.
Sure. And we mentioned at the top of the show, you went through a lot of craziness in your life, and you kind of walked away from music for a while, kind of thing. Was there something, that sort of brought you back to go, hey, I can do this. This is fun again?
Yeah, definitely. There was a time when I had done a project with a friend of mine called Coury Palermo, and we did this duet called Paige and Palermo, and that was really just a fun project that I worked on. And then after that, we, during that process, we did a Christmas song. We did our own version of Silent Night. Silent Night, Holy Night. Do that with my friends. I'm in Nashville with some of the best singers in the world. And so I had them come and sing on some choir stuff. My brother is a producer in town. And so together he and I, produced this record. And, I got some friends to come and play and sing. And it was so much fun. And that is really what kind of did reignite that feeling of like, oh, music is fun. That's right. Like, oh, gosh, this can be fun again. And I really didn't go into it with the intention of like, I'm going to put out another, artist record. I really didn't know what my future held because I had kind of lost the excitement for releasing records after kind of everything that had happened. And so I really didn't have expectations there. But when I made that record, I thought, okay, this is super fun. I really enjoyed that process.
Right. And then, so you flash forward now to this new project. Was there a particular song that you wrote that you go, okay, now the ball's rolling. Now we got to really put something together?
I think what happened was the Christmas record happened, and then people, heard that record, and then my fans came around and they were like, when's your next release, and it really started that thought in me. And so I had a bunch of songs that I've written through the years for myself and for other artists. I've continued through the years to be a songwriter. I've done a lot of work in the music world. It's just been a lot more behind the scenes, for advertising campaigns and a bunch of stuff. So still been very active in music, but just not as an artist as much. So anyway, so I had a ton of songs still kind of like in my arsenal of songs. And what I thought I was going to do was take those songs, pick my favorites, and go make a record with those top 10 of the songs that I'd already written. So I thought this will be very easy. I'll go in, I'll grab those songs, I'll update them, and, that'll be the record. And that's what I thought I was doing when I went into Kickstarter. But when I got to the studio and I started playing songs and stuff, I realized that I was really in such a different place from when I'd written those songs that I just was craving to write new songs. So it really was, they just started kind of writing themselves at that point. And there was no particular order of things. Like my first single was Devil's in the Details. Make it too hard to love you. Make it too hard to, even when you're close, it's like I've lost you. It's like a start to. That was one of the very last songs that we wrote for the record. So it was a pretty one thing led to another type process.
Well, and you mentioned Devil's in the Details. That's got kind of a real hypnotic kind of feel to it. When you are writing something like that, does it come out that way and you have the arrangement in your head, or is it something that you kind of play around with until you get the arrangement just right?
I think that one was particularly one that we played around with until we felt we got it right. It had been a work in progress for, almost the duration of the process. Like it was just kind of like a track idea that had a few lyrics to it, and so it changed many times. So in the end, I wasn't sure that we were ever going to put that song on the record, but one day, near the end of the process, I came in and to the studio and we took another look at it, and then it just totally reformed itself. So that's when that song really came to life, was when we made a bunch of changes at the end, and then it's funny how a song, to me, like, you really know when you're in the flow, because when you're kind of banging your head to find lyrics and to find melodies and even production, things, like, that's when, like, you kind of need to step away, because what I found, at least, is that typically, things are really in a flow when they're really working. And so that one became very easy at the end, but it was a totally different type version by the end there.
Right. Now, I understand that you're a fan of Everything But the Girl, especially the song Missing and the way that was all remixed. And I understand,
Yes.
I read something where that kind of was had an influence on Forget Me Not. Is that right?
Yes, totally. I had been thinking of that song a lot for some reason. I think because I was thinking, like, what do I want this album to be like, and what artists do I like, and for whatever reason that song just popped into my head and I couldn't kind of lose it, and so I played it for the producer and the remix version, and I said, gosh, I love this song, like, I'd love to have a feeling like this song. And so like, we didn't do it that day, but later, in the process of going to the studio and stuff, I just remember driving there. The studio was about 15 minutes away from my house, and I remember just driving there, and suddenly the melody and the lyrics kind of popped into my head, and I thought, what is this? It was very hypnotic, like you said, like this melody particularly felt very, like, almost like a run-on sentence, and that's kind of how I felt about Missing. It was just like, almost like, I don't know, like you're stepping into somebody's thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt about this song, too. So it definitely did influence. It was definitely a song that was on my mind when I was writing that.
Absolutely. Now, Up All Night has got a different feel from the rest of the track.
That's what keeps me up at night. That's what keeps me up at night. Need you here right by my side, the way you love me right.
So almost, I don't know, I want to say like maybe a Motown thing going on. It's kind of soulful.
Right.
And I love the lyrics in that. I took the apple, somehow I'm still around, kind of thing. Like, for a song like that, is that the lyrics that come first, then you kind of put an arrangement to it, or is it vice versa?
That one had a really strong. The producer was a big influence for that song, because he created this kind of cool track idea, and when I got to the studio, it was kind of like an organ mixed with like a really strong beat. And I was like, what in the world is this? What am I going to do with this? But I liked it. I thought it was so cool and something I hadn't really heard before. And it was almost like, aggressive. There was something kind of aggressive about it. So I just started kind of hearing the lyric, that melody came first, and then just kind of started peeling the lyrics into that track. So that one was definitely led more by the track.
Now, you mentioned Coury Palermo. Now, you have a duet with him, Can't Keep You Here.
I can't keep you here, I can't keep you here. I don't want to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he is just such an awesome artist. Like, we are really close friends now through that process of Paige and Palermo. And he's just one of those artists that really is a true artist. Everything he does is all the way artist. And he's not the kind who's like doing it for the fame and fortune as much as just like, because he is just through and through an artist. And I love working with people like that, because you never know what they're going to inspire in you. And so we had already written Can't Keep You Here, the producer and I. And I said to my producer, I was like, I've got to get Coury in to sing backgrounds on this, because, he's so perfect. He's got such a soulful voice and all that stuff. And so we did that. But when Coury came in, we really decided at that point to feature him more, because he sounded so great. I was like, okay, you've got to sing a verse now. You've got to sing some ad-libs with me. And so it really became just a fun thing that turned into a duet.
Now, the song January, you wrote about the passing of your parents.
January, a bittersweet anniversary.
And what I like about it is that your voice is not as, there's not a lot of effects on it. It's just kind of you.
It is, totally. when I started this album, I really wanted to do a simple record. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this very stripped down, very singer-songwritery. And, I just discovered about myself that I love layers. One of my favorite artists is like Annie Lennox, and, I love George Michael. And so it's like, they're such amazing singers, but like there's a lot going on in their production as well. And so there's like backgrounds, and there's, so I realized like I crave that stuff. But I love an album that has a moment, at least a moment where it's just a vocal and something simple going on. So you can really get to the heart of things, And so that lyric was more one that was kind of important to be truly heard and understood. And it was, sometimes I'm scared to say what songs mean to me because I really want them to mean whatever they want to mean for, for the listener. But this particular song, I just felt very personal about it. But I think it really does apply to so many people, because it's the idea behind the song is that, every January is the anniversary of the passing of the both of them. And so it's that strange feeling of like celebrating their life and also missing them. And so it's like a happy, sad moment. It's great to remember them and think of like how awesome they were. And also it's kind of like sad that they're gone. And so it's more about the anniversary, that comes along every year, that you kind of have to deal with those strange emotions. And
you have your brother singing on it too, right?
Yes, Chance sang with me as well. He's an amazing singer and artist in his own right. And so, I just thought it was very fitting that he came and sang backgrounds.
Sure, and the two of you go way, way back, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we've worked together pretty much since we were like kids, We started very young in Atlanta. My dad was a builder, so he would build like little shopping centers in Georgia, and like little strip malls and stuff. And so when they would open, when it would be like the grand opening, my dad would ask the places a lot of times, like, hey, can my kids come out? And they'll sing in the parking lot and blah, 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 and whatever. And it was just like a fun thing that we did. And then like if there was a coffee house or like a little ice cream shop or something like that, we'd take our little sound system, and we were like so little, like, 7, 8 years old. And we would do these little, shows and stuff. And so we took ourselves very seriously as kids. And then we just grew up together singing. And so we definitely go way back. And then even as adults, we both were in the music industry. And so we've worked together a ton. And he's still to this day one of my favorite producers to work with.
Now, you talked about your parents. Now, look, the music business can be really, really hard, and it's like, so did you always have the blessing of your parents to say, okay, this is what I want to do, or were they trying to sort of steer you in a different direction, or at least at first?
They were very unconventional type parents, to be honest. They weren't like show parents at all, but they really were very unstructured, I guess you could say. Like, I remember, I look back now, and I mean, I'm a mom now to a 2-year-old, and I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, my parents were crazy. They were so nuts. Like, what were they doing? But they would take me to, like, me and my brother both, to like little competitions and stuff. My aunt was a pretty well-known singer in Atlanta, and so she kind of knew the circuit around town of like what, like even bars, So like when I was a 16, 17-year-old, my dad would take me to like competitions around town, and we would stay there till closing time sometimes, because I'd have to find out if I won the competition, and if we won the trip to Vegas and stuff like that. So a lot of times we would win, my brother or I. And so one time we both won this male and the female version, and then my family like won this free trip to Las Vegas to go in the national competition, and stuff like that happened for us a lot. So it was just like such a funny way to grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have that as a parents that are that, sort of open-minded about, hey, let's just make this happen. Let's just do this thing.
Yeah, they really were like that. Like, they weren't, they didn't pressure us, but I think they truly enjoyed it. And because my aunt was she was like my mom's best friend, so she was always around. So that lifestyle wasn't like foreign to us. It was just like, yeah, this is what you do. You do competitions, and then you do this, and then, and so it did work. One thing led to another. And I think by the time I was, in my early 20s or even late teens, I had the confidence to just be like, yeah, this is what I do. I mean, after high school, I went on the road with a band and toured the U.S. So that is really what gave me the confidence to move to California. And then from California, you know, when I first moved out there, I started singing some demos for local songwriters, and that is literally how I got my deal. So things happened very, very quickly for me once I moved to California.
Now, if we fast forward to 1998 in your song Crush,
It's just some little thing, not like everything I do depends on you.
I understand that song kind of went through several kind of incarnations before the finished product. Did you know, I mean, did that stand out to you as, oh yeah, this is the song that's better than anything else I've written or recorded?
I didn't really know. Like, I just knew that, like, it was one of the first songs that we had like a finished version of, and so we had a roommate at the time, and we had a little party, and so we had people over, a bunch of people over, and I said, "Oh, this is my new song," you know, just completely like naive about everything, and then the kids there, you know, they just wanted to play it over and over and over and over and over again. And I thought that's kind of crazy. Like, what's happening right now? And that was before it had any buzz or anything like that. And really, that song did take on like that. Like, people just wanted to hear it again and again, and it caught on like wildfire. So I think I knew pretty quickly, just because it had happened in my mind, like kind of how I dreamed about it happening, you know, as a kid.
And then, I mean, not only do you have success in the United States, but, I mean, as I mentioned in the top of the show, that it topped the charts in, like, places like Russia and Spain. And, I mean, that's got to be just mind-blowing. I mean, you can say, oh, yeah, I dream of success, but having a number one hit in New Zealand, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was nuts. It really was. And it really was a huge introduction to the world for me, because I hadn't traveled a lot. You know, I traveled the U.S. some, but not abroad at all. And so I really had no concept of international anything. I mean, at all. So for me, it was like really mind blowing to step off a plane and, we're like, as people, you know, you're on a plane and you're like groggy because you've just flown like 10 hours somewhere, and then you get off the plane and there were people there waiting for me with signs and stuff, and I think, like, what in the world? You know, I can't understand the language. A lot of times it was just so wild. It was weird.
Yeah. I mean, and then, you know, you record this really strong debut album and the other singles are not successful. I mean, was it, I mean, you know, because that's one of the hardest things. You get success, you have a hit single, and then, of course, immediately then you're expected to duplicate it over and over and over, right?
Right, totally. I didn't really see it as not a success, because in a lot of places it was successful. It just wasn't successful in the U.S. Unfortunately, my timing was just horrible. And so, like, I had a song called Stranded that did really well, like, all over the world. And that continued to take me to a lot of places. And I toured for 2 to 3 years, you know, after that, even my second album release. So it wasn't as successful as Crush, but it was still successful. And so I still was able to continue doing concerts and traveling and doing the things that I loved. It just wasn't, you know, to the massive success that Crush was. And of course it was disappointing, but it wasn't like career ending, you know. So, like, in a lot of ways, like, I think people might think, oh, well, she never did anything after that, but that's really not the truth. Like, my life was still very, very busy. It was just busy in places like Italy and then Germany, and so, like, I continued on, and I made a second record that I was really proud of called Positively Somewhere, and then I made the record Best Kept Secret, like you mentioned, and I did a duet with Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys that was released in Germany and did pretty well. And so, like, there was a lot still going on, but it just was a bit more of a struggle. And like I said, it was so effortless in the beginning, and I really didn't realize what a blessing that was when it first happened.
Absolutely. Now, I have to ask you, you talked about, you know, okay, maybe you weren't having, massive success in the United States, but you were also doing things behind the scenes. Now, I know you said you've done some advertising campaigns and things like that. Is it true that you are one of the voices for the nationwide is on our side kind of thing?
Yes, totally.
That is so crazy. All right, that's just
Isn't that
nuts.
funny?
That's just nuts. I mean,
I know, it's so funny. Yeah, I've done, I should say, a lot of commercial singing. So, people who really know my voice might be like, wait, is that Jen? Because there was a time period where that was really what I was focusing on. So my voice is definitely out there, and that was definitely one of them. Also did like an Overstock.com, Betty Crocker, there's a lot of things out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I had Shelby Lynn on the show several times, and, Shelby was signed to major labels, and then she decided to do her own thing. And she told me that it is a freeing experience, but it's also a lot of hard work. Would you agree?
Oh, my word. It is so much work you would not believe. You wouldn't believe it. It's kind of like, stepping into Try Be Target, today. It's like we are not manufacturers. We're not, we literally never shipped out, 400 packages, in a certain period of time or something like that. So it is crazy. It really is. It's such a crazy experience. I learned a lot through that process, and it was super cool. It was, but it was a lot of work.
I'm sure. So you have a website. It's jenniferpaige.com. And I was noticing on there, you can buy the CD there, and you've also got it on vinyl. How cool is that?
I'm so excited about that because the only thing I've ever had on vinyl was the remix of Crush. And so, I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm not the perfect buyer for a remix that, like a vinyl remix. To me, that's like a DJ or
right.
Somebody like that.
Yep.
But I'm not going to listen to the same song 14 different ways or whatever. So,
right.
So I've never had something where I'm like, oh, I can't wait for people to hear this on vinyl. And so this will be my first album on vinyl, and I'm so excited about it.
Awesome. And I believe you got some tour dates coming up and promoting the new record then?
I do. I've got some dates overseas happening already in the summer, and we're putting together some dates for East Coast as we speak. So hopefully, I think it will depend on where how the album does, and where people want me, if people want me to come perform. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm excited to see how it all shakes out.
Absolutely. And, you talked about how, the Kickstarter program certainly helped you. So I imagine that you're pretty in touch on social media as well, right?
Yes, I am. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and the whole, pretty much everywhere. So, I that's basically how I keep in touch with everybody.
Absolutely. And it's great to get the sort of immediate response from your fans. You couldn't get that back in 1998.
It's a totally different thing. Yeah, it really is. As an artist, it really is so different than it was back then.
Right.
Everything has changed. And so it's pretty crazy that, we basically run our own, oftentimes most artists run their own pages and, make their own updates and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. We really do have that personal connection.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, it was great talking to you. The new CD from Jennifer Paige is called Starflower, and we wish you luck with it.
I so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head on over to iconfetch.com. There you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who's Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send us what you've got to Tony Peters, Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio, zip code 45429, or email Tony, host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.